My dad used to say to me, if I ever get in a position where I can't wipe my own arse, pull the plug. You probably had similar things said to you by your parents. Maybe you've said it to your kids. Easy to say, but much more difficult when you're faced with it. Me and my dad didn't have the happiest of relationships, I'll be honest with you. He put me into care after my mum died when I was 11. I hated the bastard for years and years and years until I met the Bishop of Bedford. It's a longer story, which I've gone into in my book, and one day I might talk about it more. But he said the only way to ever free yourself of your past, John, this is the Bishop of Bedford, was to allow the person who's hurt you the most to be free too. So I just decided to basically forgive my dad. I never told him. I just reacted to him in a different way. And towards the end of his life, and I didn't know it was going to be the end of his life, he was a very active pensioner, living on his police pension, enjoying himself, married to my stepmom, although she'd never really been my mum because I was growing up by the time they'd got together. Because my mum died at 11 at Christmas, just in a few days' time, to be absolutely honest with you. But he used to say this. He said, if I couldn't wipe my arse, then please basically put me down. And this is coming to sharp focus today because we've now got state-assisted suicide. That's what I'm calling it. I wasn't sure where I stood on it, but once the self-serving pigs of Westminster voted for it, it firmed up my opinion. Would you really want them in charge of who can die and who can't? And you telling me that won't go down a slippery path? Because I think it will. Anyway, with my dad, I forgave him. And we had quite a good grown-up relationship. He then went on a holiday to Thailand. He collapsed at Heathrow, went into a coma, and he never recovered from that coma. He couldn't get a hospital bed for ages. there's the story. And so he was in a corridor for 3 or 4 days. And then we kept going down to see him. And effectively, they do this. Do they call it the Glasgow scale or something like that? Where they work out, would he come back? And if he did come back, where would he be? Because he was in a coma. And they basically said, he's got no brain function. And it's horrible to face, even though, as I say, I didn't really get on with him in my younger life. One could say putting me in care was the making of me. The other part of it, you could say, no, it fucked me up. Right. Anyway, I don't really want to go there in this particular podcast. But what I do want to say is, it's dead easy to say, yeah, I'll do that for your dad. I'll pull the plug. I'd help you commit suicide. But unless you've been in that situation, I don't know whether you've got a right to an opinion. And also, my dad, it wasn't assisted death or assisted suicide, was it? Because he was already in the coma. But it's the nearest I can get to it in my understanding. So I used to be very firm. I used to be against it. I used to be very firm on abortion. I used to be against abortion. This is years ago. I'm not now, having 2 girls of my own. But I'm not also happy with what abortion's become in our country. In 1967, when abortion was introduced by, what's his name? Oh, the liberal leader. I'll come back to me in a moment. But anyway, when he introduced it, he never thought it would turn into the industrial scale of abortion we've got now, where some women, intelligent women, are having more than one abortion, or it's perhaps being used as a drastic form of contraception. I don't think that's where it was meant to go. 2 doctors were meant to agree, etc., etc. But things get lax, don't they? And don't get me wrong, I do think a woman's got the right to choose to do what she wants to do with her body. I do take that on board now. I do think somebody should think about the unborn child. And I do think men need to realise their responsibility for children doesn't end as they roll off the woman and light up a cigarette, to use a cliche. Yeah. So I believe in a woman's right to choose, but I just look at abortion, the Abortion Act in 1967 and how it is now. And it is very different. That could not have been what they anticipated. So they say now there's all these restrictions in place. There's going to be all these, you've got to have medical help and all that. But how close would it be? Because don't forget also, it'd be a bit like my dad. My dad said, if I couldn't wipe my arse, pull the plug. Well, let's say he didn't go into a coma. Let's say he got dementia. He said that much earlier in his life. This is 17, 18 years ago he died. But say he'd said that and he'd carried on living and he'd got dementia and he lost control of certain bodily functions. Well, could I then say, well, my dad always said pull the plug? And will some people do that? Do you understand what I'm saying? And also, old people, I know somebody at the moment very close to me who they think they're a burden. They're not a bloody burden. They looked after us when we were young. It's our duty, our responsibility to look after them. But there's a line, isn't there? And if you're not careful, oh, yes, she'd be happier. She'd be happier dead. Well, would she? No, maybe she's just a bit down. Maybe she's a bit depressed. And one of the other things, this is where I met the Bishop of Bedford, actually. When I worked in Luton, I got to know this local hospice called Keach Hospice. It got vandalised. They were building a new children's wing to it. And it got vandalised. They had these special windows which you could look out of, but you couldn't look into, if you follow what I mean. They cost a fortune. Anyway, one day on my phone in on BBC 3C, what's it called? BBC Three Counties Radio. Somebody phoned in and told me the hospice had been attacked and all these windows had been smashed. I went off on one. You can imagine what I was like. And anyway, I decided on air there and then, I didn't give a shit about any BBC guidelines. Let's raise the money to replace the windows. And so we raised an absolute fortune over the weeks. It wasn't down to me. It was the listeners. And the listeners did charity rides and all the rest of it. And local businessmen donated money. And not only did we get the windows done, which was tens and tens of thousands of pounds, we had a water feature made as well. But then the hospice opened. So it was all great doing it, thinking, oh, I'm doing this for the kids, dying kids, blah, blah, blah. To be cynical, it's quite an easy sell. Vandals wreck, hospice for kids. Kids are dying of cancer. We've all got pictures of them with no hair in their head. Do you understand what I mean? But then you have to go and face the reality of it. They invited me. It was called Keach Hospital. I became a massive friend, very good friend of Dennis Keach, who gave most of the money for the hospice. Marvellous man, passed away a year or so ago. He became a bit of a mentor to me, to be honest. But at first, I didn't really know him. Anyway, so they say, come up to the hospice, Gaunty, now it's open, see the kids, meet some of the parents, etc. And I was the father of two young girls at the time. And I thought, I don't want to go to hospice. I really don't want to do that. You know, because when your kids are born, you know, you count the fingers, don't you, and everything, and you're just grateful that everything works. Yeah, that they're great. They're perfect. The thought of having a kid whose life was going to be limited scared the shit out of me. I've got to be honest with you. But anyway, I went up to the hospice and they showed me round. And I thought it was going to be a place of death. It's actually a place of life and hope. And they even took me into the room. They had a special room where when the child died, basically, it was like a refrigerated bed. It still looked like a bed, but the child could be left in it if that's what the family wanted. And they showed me the rooms where the family came to stay. And I realized the hospice wasn't just about the terminally ill child. It was also about the family, sense of community, meeting other people in a similar situation. It changed my attitude. It changed my life. And when they then told me that most of the money that funded, not just that hospice and that children's hospice, but hospices all over the country, both for adults and for children, comes from charity, I was fucking outraged. It's not funded by central government. Why not? Why isn't palliative care and hospices funded fully from our taxes? We're one of the fifth or sixth largest economy in the world. Perhaps if we stop looking after every Tom, Dick and Abdul, who manages to sneak into our country, we could, I don't want to get too political, but we could look after these people. And I began to understand what life was about. So these two things, my dad dying of the heart attack after being in the coma, and also going to the children's hospice and helping in my own little way. The only way I can help, I'm no good at building or doing anything like that, but I've got a gob and people like listening to me and I can kind of encourage people. And that's what I did. And then I was involved with the hospice for an awful long time. And I enjoyed it. And also that first day, I think it was the first time or maybe the second time I went, I'm talking to a kid in a wheelchair, about 14, 15, and another one who I thought was the brother or sister of the person who was really poorly. I naturally assumed, in my prejudice, in my ignorance, that the one in the wheelchair was the one who was terminally ill. I spoke to one of the nurses afterwards and I said, "Oh, yeah, they're a lovely bunch of kids, those two, da 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 da." And then we came around to, how long as the one in the wheelchair. Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with the one in the wheelchair. The one who's going to die is the other one, who just looked like my daughter, looked just like my Bethany. And honestly, it took my breath away. And how we could all be there, but for the grace of God, if you believe in God, if you follow where I'm coming from. And so, as I say, I did quite a lot of work. And I do believe in the hospice movement. And even to this day, I think it's shocking. There's Acorns Hospice I've done bits and bobs for up here in the Midlands. But a lot of my friends are deeply involved in it, with children and with adults. And there's Myton Hospice as well in Warwick. I just think it's disgraceful that they rely so heavily on charity and it isn't funded directly. And also, you can have a quality of life. That said, I remember the woman in Luton when I was on the radio who had motor neuron disease, Diane Petty, I think her name was. And she came on the programme, and her partner, because she wanted the right to die. Yeah. So I understand the arguments. And actually, I haven't really thought about it that much recently until that Ledbetter MP, who, of course, is the sister of the murdered woman who got murdered by the right-wing fascist mayor, was his name, wasn't it? Until she brought up this thing. And so today, I'd started to watch the debate. And then I got angry again. It's been the right day for getting angry. I got angry because it's like they've only given it 5 hours to discuss, not a full parliamentary debate. By the way, we are going to talk about Louise Haigh, who lost her phone and then found it again, but forgot to tell the coppers or the insurance company. She's had to resign. We'll come on to that later in the show. This is the John Gaunt Podcast. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for making it so successful. Keep on telling all your friends. And you seem to like it now that it's got this video. And I promise you, this will get better and better, and we'll have guests soon as well. So thanks a lot for that. Let me just go back then. So I'm watching this debate today, and it's only 5 hours long. How can you only give 5 hours to a debate that is so personal? And people giving their personal stories, like me talking about my dad today. You need more time. It didn't need to be on a Friday. It needed to be a proper parliamentary debate. And so that's when I say, now that they've passed it, well, it's gone through the major stage, isn't it? Do you trust those muppets, those self-serving pigs, not to extend the boundaries of it? We've got a government at the moment that's just stolen the winter fuel allowance off the elderly, off a lot of the elderly, 10 million people. There's already stories in the news and in the newspapers, yeah, if you still buy one of those old things, saying that people are choosing between heat or meat. People sitting with blankets around them to watch the telly in the daytime. Old age pensioners who have paid in all their lives. It's a disgrace. Starmer, you should hang your head in shame. Call yourself a socialist. Don't forget, we're going to talk about Starmer. What did he know about Haigh? Huh? He made her a minister, a woman who's a convicted, this isn't an opinion, this is fact, a convicted fraudster. He gave her a department budget of something like 40 billion. What is this idiot up to? Anyway, back to assisted dying. So I watched the debate and it was moving in places. It really was. People giving their personal stories. And I basically thought, well, you know what? I'm not black and white on this completely until the vote. And they got it through with about a majority of about 70. And then I thought, no. Then I just think, no, this is a slippery slope. And it's only come about really because Esther Ransom wanted it. Now, God bless Esther, although there have been questions about. Anyway, God bless her. She brought this off. But it's kind of like, I don't know. Can we trust the state to help us die? We certainly can't trust us trust them to help us to live, can we? It worries me. It worries me deeply. And in every country where they have introduced assisted dying, if you want to call it that, I'm calling it state suicide or assisted suicide, the standards have slipped. Just like with abortion. Just like with abortion. It slips. It's the nature of the way the world works and society works, isn't it? Huh? Why have we got the trans nonsense, the extreme trans nonsense? Oh, no, I identify as a woman. I've got a beard, and why can't I have a beard? And I've got a cock still. I'm going to go into a ladies' changing room. No, you're not, mate, unless you want your lights punched out. But see, I'll get arrested for that. I'm just making up a scenario, by the way, in case the thought police are listening. But it's just mad. I'm into gay rights. I'm into equality. I want equality for people who think they're in the wrong body as well. Of course I do. But as time progresses, things become a bit more stupid, don't they? Also remember listening to Simon Fanshawe from Stonewall, the comedian. I used to promote him years and years ago. Fascinating guy. He set up Stonewall. And he said, when we did that, he said, we did it to be equal, not to be superior. And I thought that was, I think I might misquote him a little bit there, but the basic premise, we just want to be equal. We want to sleep with another man, but I just want to be treated equally. I think that's perfectly right. And I think that's the way society should be. And if you are a lesbian and you want to live with women, that's up to you. Get on with it. And I think most people in this country are generally accepting of that. But it's warped into something else, hasn't it? And this could be the same thing, do you not think, with assisted dying? Oh, yeah, their quality of life is crap. Yeah, they've got motor neurone disease. Oh, they can't speak. Oh, they've got suicidal thoughts. I mean, look at mental health. They've been talking recently, haven't they, about the kids and whether it's to do with COVID and the lockdowns and the rest of it, all of which has got validity we should discuss. But why is there so much mental health? Why is there so much stress? Why has everybody you know got a mental health problem? So can you see, oh, I've got mental health problems. I have suicidal thoughts. I'd rather be dead. All right, here's 2 doctors. Bum, bum. There you go. It's not good, is it? I'm not saying it will happen, but this is where I'm worried. And maybe you share the same worries. If you do, get in touch with me, john@johngaunt.com, Jon, by the way, or on Twitter or on Facebook, because I'm not saying this is black and white. You know, normally I can say, this is my view, this is the way it is, and you're talking absolute crud. I won't do that with this discussion because I appreciate it's a very personal and complex thing, but I worry that things will just get more and more lax. And then it'll be, oh, it's what she wanted. Because when you look at people who are looking after elderly relatives, you often get the impression they see them as a total burden. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a saint. I know what that feels like. They really can piss you off at times, can't they? And I'm sure, I mean, do you remember the Life and Times of Joe Egg? Brilliant play from the late 60s, 70s about a couple looking after a son with multiple disabilities. It kind of basically said, it ain't all roses around the cottage door. And it sort of showed the frustration and how difficult it is. Of course it's difficult. You know, like having a child who's got some sort of mental health problem or physical problem. It's difficult. And it isn't all nice. Sometimes you do get angry. You do get frustrated. You're bound to, aren't you? And so what I'm trying to say is it's a really complex thing. But I think allowing the MPs to make the decision they've made now, and shoot me down in flames, I think they've made a bad decision. I think it's a bad thing for British society. And it worries the hell out of me that it will just get more and more into, that's just what they want. That's what they wanted. Pull the plug. If I'm wrong, let me know. This is the Jon Gaunt Podcast. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget, it is on audio. You can find it on Facebook, Spotify, all your other podcast sites. But also now I'm doing it on YouTube. I'm doing a video. So if you're watching the YouTube video, subscribe. There's a little subscribe button down there. Press the subscribe, and then you'll get every single edition. And then soon we're going to be doing live shows with guests as well, video content, pure video content, which will all be here on YouTube. Can I say something else as well? The YouTube channel is growing really quickly. We nearly got 2,000 subscribers now, which from a standing start is out of this world. But you've also got to get your watch hours. They call it your watch hours, yeah? You've got to get 4,000 watch hours. Now, I had 18,000 or 28,000 watch hours, but because I haven't done any broadcasting in the last couple of years, it's only in the last 12 months. So I've got to build it up again, and you've got to have 4,000 before you can start having ads and monetize the channel. So today we hit a milestone. I went over the 1,000. I think it's now 1,100. If you can help, and all you have to do to help is watch the blooming video. So if you're listening on the audio at the moment, try and subscribe to my channel, John Gaunt TV on YouTube, and watch some of the videos. That would really help me. Soon I get to 4,000, then I can hopefully get some advertising and sponsorship, and hopefully we move on from there. And then I won't have to keep asking you to do buy me a coffee. But if you want to do that in the meantime, it's buymeacoffee.com, buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt, all one word, www.buymeacoffee/John Gaunt. Right. I just want to now do 10 minutes or so on Louise Haigh. Louise Haigh. What do you make of her? What do you make of that story? She's the transport minister. She's the one with the red hair. Some people are saying she's made quite a good job of... Oh, hold on. It's come back to me. I knew it would. David Steele. David Steele used to be the leader of the Liberals or the Lib Dems, and he was the man who introduced the abortion bill in 1967. See, man, still there. Still there. It's a bit slower than it used to be. Oh, that's really pleased me. All my relatives are thinking, oh, God, if you'd forgot David Steele's name, we could have got him assisted dying. There'd be a few MPs who agree with that, I bet you. Anyway, I'm going off the point. David Steele, that's it. Right, so let's get back to this. So she, before she came into Parliament, to be fair to her, lost her phone, or she got mugged. That's it, she got mugged. She had to make a list of what was in her handbag because she had a handbag stolen, and she put down a mobile phone. Now, I don't know whether the phone was in there or not, but that's what she said to the police. Anyway, subsequent to this, the police tracked her phone down because a couple of months later, there must have been a bug in it, a tracking thing in it. And she was, this is the thing, she was working for an insurance company at the time. Now, as soon as I heard all this morning, my eyebrows started to arch, right? Don't we all know people who have done the insurance thing? Oh, yeah, I had that in the... Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, when you have a break-in, people say to you, oh, make sure you bump up the value because they're going to knock it down. And the insurance companies know this. I'm not suggesting that's what Louise did, but my eyebrows arched. Anyway, so the police discovered that the phone was in her house. So they went back to her and said, look, oh, yeah, I found it. Yeah, but did you report that back to us? No. I'm cutting the story short. Anyway, she ends up in court. And she gets done for the lowest form, it's got to be said, the lowest form of fraud, i.e. not declaring that she got the phone back. Now, as I say, I know people who have done this kind of thing. They hide stuff in the attic or whatever, right? Desperate people. I know some desperate people who are unemployed who did this, right? Years ago. Did I grass them up? No, I didn't actually, because they were desperate. But... would I know? Anyway, so this is what she... No, sorry, I don't know whether this is what she did. But she found the phone but didn't bother telling the insurance company or forgot. So she's got done for fraud. And the weird thing is, lots of experts today, ex-coppers, are saying, well, that's the lowest. I don't know why she actually got a criminal conviction for that. And it is a criminal conviction. You normally would just get a warning and a bit of a reprimand from the coppers and, don't do it again sort of thing. So... are we going to hear more soon? Meanwhile, fast forward, she gets selected to be in a shadow cabinet by Keir Starmer. Now, she said she told Keir Starmer. As the days progressed, Keir Starmer, so she writes a letter apologising and leaving the government like they all do, but he only gave a really terse, and when I read it, I thought, oof, there's something more in this story, Gaunty. 5 lines he wrote back saying, thanks, bye. Basically, leave your keys on the desk. Really, really dismissive. His acceptance of her resignation. It's come out as the day progresses. They're now saying, oh, Keir, she hadn't told him everything. And when she became a proper minister, not just a shadow minister, she should have done that. So I don't know what the truth is. Because if Keir Starmer knew she was a convicted fraudster, it's really serious. Why would you then give her a government department worth 48, I think it's 48 or 42 billion pounds, the budget? And it's a very, very important portfolio, transport, railways, whatever. And she's doing some things I agree with. Renationalising, she was bragging about the other day, of the trains. She wants to do more with the buses, all of which I applaud. I don't agree with the idea that they put the cap up to £3 for the minimum fare, and the danger they might try and take bus passes off the elderly. But anyway, she wasn't making a fist of it, a bad fist of it at all. But you can't be a fraudster. And there's been a load of these liberal twats today. Oh, but it's suspend convictions. It's bloody fraud. She didn't tell the Prime Minister. And of course, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, remember his famous line? Lawmakers cannot be law breakers, he said about Boris Johnson when he was in opposition. Lawmakers cannot be law breakers. So would we accept her doing 150 and a 20? No, we wouldn't. We'd be drumming her out of a job. Now, I've got to say one thing in Louise Haigh's defence. She didn't mess about. She resigned. And there were plenty of Tories who didn't do that. They clung on limpet-like, didn't they, to their jobs, their portfolio and their extra money. At least she stood down. But there's questions to be asked of Keir. If two-tier Keir knew, then his position is surely called into question, or his judgment. And as I said on one of my tweets earlier today, there's plenty of other things we don't know about what's happened about, don't we? The Chancellor, she suddenly emerged from under her rock today because the heat is on somebody else. But what about her fiddling her CV? What about Sir Keir himself and the suits from Lord Ali? What about the Taylor Swift tickets, which suddenly, some of which, Sir Keir gave the money back for, but not all of them? What about the £2,500 glasses off Lord Ali? What about Angela Rayner and the trip to New York in Lord Ali's flat? What about Lord Ali? What's he getting from all this money he's pumping in? What is the story with Sir Keir? Is he living at number 10 or is he living somewhere else? Where's his wife? We've not seen her for ages. Why is that? There's lots of questions over this guy. And do you know what? He's brought a lot of this on himself because he was going to be whiter than white. The adults were meant to be back in charge. So let's look at that. The adults are back in charge. Most of them have been slagging off the president of the free world. That was a clever idea. That was grown up. Yeah, but he sucks, says Trevor Lammy. Yeah. Then we've got Angela Rayner gobbing off at every opportunity. We've got a Chancellor who's fiddled her CV. We've now got a Minister of Transport who's a convicted fraudster. Shall I go on? Oh, yes. Let's have a bit more. Yvette Cooper talking about the riots and then interviewed by her old man on GMTV, but Ofcom don't mind. Everything's okay. Everything's rosy. We're in the sunlit uplands of the new Labour government. Don't get me wrong. I don't support the Tories either. They were a bunch of corrupt no-marks. Yeah? But the whole thing is wrong. And that's why I say, how can you trust them not to, mess up state suicide? It'd be good for them soon. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but some of the people would suggest they would like the population decreased. Let's get rid of those oldies. Oh, yeah. Oh, come here. Yeah. Oh, it's what she wanted. She always wanted to be jabbed. She always wanted to be put down at 65, 70, 75, 80, 85. Oh, she can't walk properly. Oh, I'm a bit depressed. Come here, then boom. That's what I worry about. And what I worry about is that we're not being told. It's the same old thing. Then a petition, 2.5, 3 million people. Okay, they're asking for an election. That was never. I signed it not because I wanted an election, because I wanted to put pressure on Starmer. I wanted Starmer maybe to do a bit of a Tony Blair act, bit of contrition. Oh, you know what? I haven't been listening. I've got that wrong. I'd like to change that. No, He goes on and is interviewed by that political heavyweight, the new Jeremy Paxman, Andi Peters, on GMTV. And Andi Peters stitches him up like a kipper. Andi Peters, God bless him. We might as well get fucking Timmy Mallet doing question time. You take my point, don't you? This is a farce. An absolute farce. And please don't think I'm attacking Labour and I want a Conservative government or I want reform. I don't want any of them at the moment, although I did note that Nigel Farage voted against this today. And also I do note that one of the 5 report for reform MPs, if these allegations are that he actually kicked his and physically assaulted his girlfriend stroke wife, I don't think he should be in Parliament either. So before you try and attack me on that, Farage needs to clean out his own house, his own sty. You can't trust any of them. You can't put your faith in a rock and roll band, as Oasis sang, or in a political party, can you? Self-serving pigs. Anyway, just my thoughts. If you want to comment on any of that, please drop me a line, john@johngaunt.com. Please get on Twitter, get on Facebook. If you like the podcast, please like and share them, put them out on social media, steal the video. I don't mind. Do whatever you want to do with it. And if you're only listening on audio, start watching on YouTube as well. It's called John Gaunt TV. I need to get those watch hours up, and I can only do that with your health. Health? With your help. And if you want to help in the meantime, even if you've donated already, if you can, today the donations have been great. Feel free. www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. And then you can join our roll of honour of all the people who've donated so far. I know I haven't read it out recently, but I've been trying to keep them to 30 minutes. I'll try and do it in the next one. I might do one tomorrow, although as you can see, I'm still at my daughter's. I'm going wine tasting tomorrow night. That'll be a bit sophisticated, won't it? What you meant to do? Spit? I've never recommended spitting. I've always recommended swap. And we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll probably talk to you Saturday or Sunday. Until then, if you've got kids, remember, give them a kiss, give them a hug, and don't forget to tell them you love them. And I'll see you on the next one very, very soon. All the best. Bye.